Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasim Devatma Shakti Visagunar Yaha Karanani Nikilani Tani Latma Yuktanya Adidishtat Yeka Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Practicing the yoga of meditation with the yoga of wisdom. The ancient seers of India beheld the Devatma Shakti, the divine energy inherent in everything, which, though veiled by its own modes of nature, called the gunas, was nevertheless one and indivisible, which had been inconceivable to them prior to the sharpening of their intellects. Peace, peace, peace. Om Dvaita Mulama Dukkam Nanmitasyasti Visajam Drishyame Risha Sarvamekaham Chidraso Malaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The primal error of dual vision causes the soul to suffer. Only that higher wisdom that declares that the soul is indivisible and one with Brahman will, like a needle, pierce through that cloud of ignorance and render the eye single again. For consciousness is non-dual by nature, one without a second, and thou art that. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us, may that Brahman sustain us, and may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto you. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. We stand on the verge of 2 Sundays, now and forthcoming, where we'll take up another one of the Upanisads, 108 of them left over from another age. They keep coming back, but sometimes some of them get lost, and then since they're eternal, they get found again. They get found inside of the minds of the seers, like I just chanted. Tejyan Yoga could also be Tegyan Yoga. That is the yoga of meditation, the yoga of wisdom going together. It's an unbeatable combination. But in some bhakti, in some devotion to the Lord, in some worship, and then try and do your work selflessly, then you've got the Purya Yoga formula for the age. And that was the new religion for this age that Swami Vivekananda brought back to us. That's Raja, Raja or Jnana Yoga of wisdom, then Karma Yoga of selfless action, and Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. So that's why I started off chanting in this way. We find these yogas blended into the Upanishads, which is what we've been focusing on. And although I haven't planned my classes for next month, I think it'll probably continue on in the Upanishadic fashion. As you remember, a couple of Sundays ago, because we had a seminar last week on birth, life, death, and rebirth. Hard to get that word out because nobody teaches it or talks about it. They very, very seldom talk about death. But birth is celebrated rather, but in India it's looked at with raised eyebrows, you might say. What's going to happen to the soul on this wheel of transmigration in the body, in the relativity of time and space and name and form and karma, cause and effect. But that was what we took up in terms of studying the
Yogachudamani Upanisad. Remember the chart with the goddess with the crown on her head, with all those jewels were in the Upanishad we studied. So that was another Yoga Upanishad, and there are probably another 108 Upanishads. Not sure how many of them are Yoga Upanishads, because they've started classifying it this way now. I myself have classified the Shakti or Shakta Upanishads, at least 7, maybe 8 of those, and mentions, of course, of Shakti throughout some of the others. Kena Upanishad, for instance, talks about the first mention of the Divine Mother in a scripture called Uma or Umavati in that scripture. And then there are some Upanishads that are just the classified 10 or 11 that Shankara commented on around 700 AD. So those are prominent. We study those quite a bit. On Swami Vivekananda's Sequicentennial, I remember the word, Sequicentennial, we started to study some of the other Upanishads that weren't the major Upanishads, just affectionately called minor Upanishads, just because Shankara didn't put his great mind on them. I didn't have time in his 32 years of that lifetime, talk about rebirth and so forth. So 10 of those, maybe 11, had that great commentary, and maybe they say in another classifications there may be 22 that are kind of base Upanishads, and this that we're studying today is one of those 22. It's called the Vajrasuchika Upanishad. Vajra, of course, that thunderbolt, if you want to define it that way. Suchika means a needle, diamond, made of diamond in this case. So we know diamond needle teachings are shared by Buddhism and Zen, and also with the Upanishad. We find one here in this Upanishad. It's a part of the Sama Veda. So you know the 108 Upanishads divided through the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, and so forth, Artha. Those each have a set of Upanishads with each one of those Vedas. And so 16 of them fall in the Sama Veda, and the Vajrasuchika is one of those. And its intention is that we hone this intelligence we have to a fine point, like a diamond needle, and penetrate through. And I have a chart, of course, I've made with that, an image of that, and some teachings on it that we'll use as our main chart for this 2-class Upanishad. It's very short. The slokas aren't even numbered in the copy I have, but it must be, maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs only, and so a short number of slokas. So, but very to the point, very direct about the nature of a knower of Brahman. I didn't touch the Upanishad for a while because it was having too much to do, I thought, with the four castes. And so I'll show you a chart on that. So we will cover that because it's an important teaching, the caste system. It was one of the, maybe the most marvelous system of classifying living beings in all the world in time. For the longest time began to deteriorate like everything else does, even the Dharma, the teachings over passage of yugas, to now where we're the Kali Yuga, where everything is pretty much dark as far as spiritual wisdom is concerned, and what a person possesses of their past lifetimes is pretty much missing or veiled. That's why we said Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Upasana, I was chanting. The rishis didn't know about this divine mother, this goddess, this Vakdevi, goddess of the words, this who has all the wisdom in her. But using the yoga of meditation, then all of a sudden they cut time down and saw her standing there, still, pervading everything. And they refined their intellects to such an extent that they could pierce through, like with this diamond needle, things like the 3 gunas, and time and space and causality fell back in this single-eye vision. And that's mentioned right at the very beginning of the Upanishad, that we have that teaching of penetrating through and opening up the third eye. Third eye is called Jnana-chakshu by Sri Krishna in the Gita. So we want to begin to look at the powerful Vajra, thunderbolt kind of teaching of the diamond needle. I couldn't find a picture of one. I don't think they make them. They make things that polish diamonds, and even sand diamonds, as being what can you use to sand a diamond with, really. It's the hardest substance. So they have some special diamond polishers and even sanders for the diamond. But a diamond needle must be very rare, but it really comes through at the point that being the most resilient and hardest of all substances, that it could penetrate through anything, like any cloth, for instance, if you were weaving or sewing. But in this case, it's used as a needle of the sharpened intellect, and with which that third eye can open again. So that's why I just chanted here, Dvaita Drishya Mehan Metahamrishya Sarvamekaham Chidraso Malaha. The malas, the imperfections, are very difficult for most people to even see. And when they see them, they pretty much fall back and say, I can't deal with that. It's a good mantra for most people. I can't deal with that right now. But it has to be dealt with eventually, these karmas, or these samskaras, especially if they have any kind of a negative or mixed nature, or they come rising up in your life too often and upset your yoga, upset your balance. So in that way, one of the best things is going to do to get this sharpened intellect that's as strong, sharp as a diamond, and as powerful as a thunderbolt. So a very nice title, isn't it? Vajrasuchika, this powerful, this diamond needle that's got the power of a thunderbolt that can penetrate through all darkness. I guess maybe enough said as a starter. And of course, my printer this week is also like 2 weeks ago, having a little problem. So I printed out copies for all three of you. And I did, of course, send the JPEG of it to SRB. So we now have it. Everyone who's with us in this class, or will see it in the future, can see the brand new chart that was composed last week, number 417 of my charts. And so 300 of which are in footfalls of the Indian rishis, so we don't know where we're going to put those other 117. There's another book that's actually I finished called the Matri Avatar, all the teachings of the Divine Mother of this age, Sri Sharda Devi, has another 100 or so of those new charts in it. So we'll look forward to get that out, so the newer charts can also be shown to people who have that deep interest, deep abiding interest in Vedanta, particularly as brought to us by Swami Vivekananda in 1893, when he came to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago and made that huge effect on people. Brothers and sisters of America, I belong to, this famous speech he gave in Chicago at the Parliament of Religions, which caused people to stand up just after a few words and began to applaud, roar their support of that. I think some of them were there at that Parliament of Religions were getting a little tired of the narrowness that certain fundamentalist factions of religion were trying to propose, and a wool they're trying to draw over people's eyes, like, my watch keeps the only right time, as Sri Krishna called that earlier. And so when they heard that fresh voice of Vivekananda stand up and proclaim the truth, they just all unanimously, spontaneously stood up and acknowledged that they wanted to hear about this ancient order of sannyasins that had re-emerged now out of time as succeeders to the ancient rishis of the Vedic and Upanishadic times. So this Upanishad you're looking at right now is the guide chart for these two classes, And like I say, it's a very short Upanishad, but I've selected some special slokas in it that we can feature. I think maybe the first and second sloka, I can just begin to read it for you. But first, let's do the traditional thing. And if you know it, you can chant it with me. Every Upanishad starts out with one of the 7 peace chants and ends the same with one of the 7 peace chants. And the 7 get traded off through all the Upanishads. In this particular Vajrasuchika Upanisad, they use the Om Apayantu peace chant. So let's chant that so that we start out traditionally. Om Apayantu Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshu Srotamatra Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Mahabrahma Nirakuram Mama Brahma Nirakaroda Nirakaranam Astva Nirakaranam Meyastu Dadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Maishantu Te Maishantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the Upanishad state, all existence is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman, and may Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection of Brahman ever by us, we who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman within. May all the divine qualities cited there in those Upanishads also always abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So it's not a second start to the class, it's just a continuation of our introduction into the actual slokas. So I'll read you the first 2 here and we'll look at them. I shall set forth the Vajrasuchika, the diamond needle, for all students, which pierces ignorance and ornaments those who possess the wisdom eye. So the diamond suchika penetrates through this ignorance. It's the ornament of those who have opened the third eye. That's called the anahata in the heart, and then the vishuddha in the throat, and then the agya in the third eye, right? So that's the 6th of all chakras. You can see that already the Upanishads are sharing with us that they have a deep affinity with Kundalini Yoga. And they also have an affinity with, as we saw 2 weeks ago in the Yogachudamani Upanisad, which we studied, a deep affection for and affinity with yoga. That is 8-limbed yoga, the authentic called Raja Yoga or Ashtanga, 8-limbed yoga. So that's the first sloka. I shall set forth for you, the rishi says. We don't know which rishi wrote this. Sometimes they put their name on it, most times they don't. But since then they said maybe Shankara was the one who composed this at a later date. So it would be a very recent Upanishad if that's the truth. So the rishi is saying, I want to tell you about the diamond needle, which pierces ignorance. It rebukes the ignorance in the human mind and ornaments those who have the wisdom eye open. So a qualification there is going to be necessary for beings who approach teachings like Upanishads. We know that they're non-dual by nature. Yesterday at satsang I was saying that you could try and study, say, the Ashravakra Samhita or the Brahma Sutras. You're going to need a guide for those because it's almost like, as they say, speaking Greek or trying to understand the original Sanskrit. You're going to need someone to guide you through something that's that strictly non-dual. It doesn't leave you any resting place on that steep climb up to non-dual reality. Or you could study, say, the Upanishads, and that would be a little bit less strict. As you're finding out right here, it's not that difficult to understand, but we want to find out what the diamond needle is. because it's obviously, like I said, I couldn't find a picture of one online. So where is it? It's got to be something very symbolic. And it penetrates through not just cloth or fabric like a good stainless steel needle would do, but it penetrates through this veil of ignorance that most people don't even know is there. That's why there's no name for it in the West. But in India we have two words, Maya and Samsara, that we can use for that veil of ignorance. The curtain of nescience is also a nice English phrase for that. It's just there and nobody can detect it, and when they do, it's hard to move through it. It's also what encounters the soul at the time of passing from the body, called death. Is that the transmigrating soul will find itself stuck in that curtain of nescience. So it'd be nice to have a diamond needle for all those young Hollywood types out there who might get to the Vedanta someday. It's like your best jet saber, you see, for Star Wars. And so you're going to be dealing with something very, very subtle in terms of that which is causing you to be reborn again and again, lacking the wisdom of your true nature. That should be disallowed. We should always be born knowing our true nature from the cradle to the grave as the body goes. So you could study Upanishads. You could also study the Bhagavad Gita, and that's very clear. I mean, it's got non-dual teachings in it, but there's nothing difficult to understand about that. So there are levels of scripture there. Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa. There are different levels of scripture that you can try on, as it were. Like an overcoat almost. Can I wear this? Is it keeping me warm? Does it fit? Kind of thing. And with the Upanishad, we're treading middle ground here then. Non-dual by nature, and it's talking about Brahman and Brahman alone, but it uses metaphors and analogies. It also sometimes uses stories. You remember the story of Nachiketas going to death. Death was called Yama. He had a name, he had an abode, he had a wife. So Nachiketas, this is in the Kata Upanishad, takes a journey, knocks on death's door and said, "What's beyond you?" And that the whole Upanishad spreads out from there. It's one of the most popular of the 108 Upanishads. And that's a story you're talking about there. So they're getting all this beautiful teaching from Dharmaraja. That's the name of death in India. He's called the king of Dharma. He knows everything. He's not just some black thing that destroys you. He transitions you from one body to another, from one world to another. Because the soul is eternal, it cannot die. Well, we'll get into that with this Upanishad. So people take recourse in India to meditating on death, Yama. As they make him their friend. And then it's good to have a friend in a place like that when it comes time to abandoning your body, which is not yourself. We'll see that in these teachings too. Oh yes, let's give everyone in the room one of these because the printer didn't work out, so I could show it like I'm showing this. But first of all, let's go to this chart about the wisdom eye, because that's what the first sloka tells us. Again, I shall set forth for you the diamond needle teaching, which pierces ignorance. And it says it rebukes ignorance, it says. It puts it off. And it's the special ornament of those people who have opened the wisdom eye. So if you had the diamond needle and you didn't have the wisdom eye yet, you might lose it, you see. Where was that thing you might even forget it. Isn't it true? So all of a sudden, if you have your consciousness raised to a higher level of vibration, then you'll probably say, I'm putting this needle somewhere safe where I can always take it out and use it when darkness comes. Let darkness go, the will of the wisp, which leads with blinking light to pile more gloom on gloom. This thirst for a life forever quench. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth of soul. So Swamiji's beautiful poem comes to mind. So, he didn't have just a diamond needle, he had Mother's sword of wisdom, Mother Kali's sword of wisdom. So those kinds of things are what they're saying here. It's an ornament for those who have their third eye open. Let's see what the Upanishad teachings say about opening the third eye. Here's Shankara himself. If he wrote this Upanishad, then we're in good hands. But he says this: the world is nothing but Brahman, because Brahman is the only reality. See this always with your spiritual eye, and with an unruffled mind, and in all circumstances. I mean, if you have this diamond needle and your third eye isn't open, or it has opened and it's closing again, that is, you're getting higher vision and then you're losing it, then go back to this diamond needle and use it. Keep it safe, close to your heart. So that's what it means by in all circumstances. Darkness will come to everyone. Dark night of the soul to Jesus, for instance. So as nobody escapes that Maya or that samsara in life, you just want to be able to deal with it best of all. So this Upanishad is saying, we'll give you this non-dual wisdom that will destroy that darkness whenever you think of it. Shankara goes on, for what is there to be seen here by the eye other than a mere object of the senses? So the eye is always falling on different things. Oh, I like that, I don't like that. I want that, I don't want that. That's preferences and attraction and aversion. Attraction and aversion are one of the two great disturbing dualities. Get attracted to seeing, get averse to it, but you never see it as it really is. In like manner, he says, to that one who knows Brahman, what is there to be seen at all? Whatever the intellect may play, wherever the intellect may play or wonder, except for divine reality. So he's side by side placing those who are seeing with the two eyes and those who are seeing with the single eye. Basically, that's what I just chanted. It's that dual vision, the primal error of dual vision, which causes the soul to suffer. If I were to see the one Brahman everywhere, because there's nothing but Brahman, he says. That's right here, by the way. Because Brahman is the only reality, why should I not just see that Brahman everywhere and in everything? But there are many people who obviously don't. So therefore he's saying, putting them side by side. Those who do not see Brahman, they see objects with the two eyes. But there's those with this single eye open that they see Brahman. As like Vivekananda said, why is it that I cannot see Brahman everywhere? Why is it that I cannot destroy ignorance with love and with wisdom when I come upon it? But instead, what do? I get put off by it. So you have to have that single eye of equanimity. Is it true? Well, look underneath there and you can see the first set of eyes are called the gross senses. And basically, seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, and smelling are those five. And the second set of eyes are your dream senses tonight. You see, you taste, you touch, you hear, and you smell in a dream too. So it has to be admitted that you have 10 senses, not 5, that we think of in the West. You also dream with dream senses, because your physical senses get shut off when you're in dream, don't they? So you take on subtle senses, and things like tanmatras become known to you, and prana becomes known to you. That's life force flowing. The third set of senses here is causal senses. Causal senses mean with physical senses shut off and I'm not dreaming anymore, what do I see? It's a very profound question that the ancient rishis of India proposed. We're going to call that sushupti, a very nice suchika, sushupti, swapna. There's a lot of S words and swarupa, SV words. Whenever you come upon them in Sanskrit, they're always very profound meaning to them. So we're going to call that state in which I'm not using my 5 external senses, and I'm not using my dream senses either. They're all shut off, but I'm still there, right? I'm going to call that sushupti, deep sleep. And I have causal senses still there. That is, basically, all of these sets of senses belong to me. And I can utilize them, turn them on, and turn them off as I wish. But I must try and do this consciously, rather than just have it happen as a matter of cycles in ignorance. So a causal sense would be, it is solid, it is liquid, it is subtle, it's It's like air that is there, but you can't see it. So what's the best thing to prove air? Hey, it just moved, you see. Oh, wind, Vayu, the god of wind, he proves that air exists. Otherwise, why should we even think about it when we can't see it? So these things are called causal senses. They're very deep in your causal body. That's called karana sharira in Sanskrit. This thing here, this worm that we embody, as Sri Ramakrishna was saying, men are just like worms. Take their hair away and it's just, don't you look pretty much like a worm? So basically this is called the stula sharira, the physical body. Then behind that is called the sukshma sharira, subtle body, that's your mind. And what goes on in the mind is much better, much sweeter, in most cases, it's if you have a pure mind, than what goes on in the body. The body suffers a lot. The mind can suffer, but it can also more easily transcend suffering than the body can. But the causal body is called karana sharira. It sounds like karma, doesn't it? Well, it is, start out with that first syllable. It means cause. Karma is the cause and effect thing going on all the time. You do an act, you get a reaction. You reap, you sow. It's an old story, but not very well understood, because people still go on reaping and sowing negative things and mixed things that cause them suffering. So back to the first sloka. It's this dual vision, this primal error of seeing two everywhere, or many, that causes the soul to suffer. That's a beautiful conclusion that he makes in this first very sloka, the early slokas of the Ashtabhakra Samhita. So those three are three sets of senses. You might say three sets of five. And then there's this single eye. Avinashantam it's called. It sees reality everywhere. It sees reality dwelling equally in everything. Sarvatva. And it sees that nature pervades all action, but the soul is always actionless. That's what Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita. On the battlefield, it says, all this action is going on. It's not in your soul. The soul is free from activity. So that's why we meditate, or the seers have samadhi and so forth, to enter that actionless, pure and perfect state of awareness that's all-pervasive. And if it becomes covered, what are you gonna use? Go to the Gita and get a Vajrasuchika right away. See if you can find one online. I couldn't. There's no such thing as a diamond needle that I could find. There were diamond things, but like I say, how do you sand diamond, the hardest substance? They have diamond sanders. You can polish it. That takes a long time. But that's how rare it is, even on a physical level. I'd say it's probably less rare on the mental level, as people see, I need to see through this ignorance, so I'll quit suffering. I'm through with this. I renounce it. I want to be free for all times, because my soul, they tell me, is free at all times. So I must get this needle and I must apply it. You see the image then on the cover chart, right? There's a Vajrasuchika there that's penetrating that black bubble on the chart, and it's causing a little bit of a penetration there, so that some of those things that the Upanishad is going to tell us will prove to be untrue. So ignorance is telling us many lies, pulling the wool over our eyes. We want to see clearly again, so that's why this jnana chakshu, the eye of wisdom, needs to be opened in us. We can't wander around saying, I can't see anything, I can't see anything, I don't know what the Guru is teaching, if we just insist on keeping our wisdom eye closed. They'll shake you and say, what's the matter with you? Open your eye, you'll see. So it's impractical otherwise. So you'll have to do some work to raise consciousness to higher centers, if you want to put it in the Kundalini way of saying. Well, we had Shankara give this beautiful quote. Let's see what our our great master, Sri Ramakrishna, says, the eyes are in the center of the forehead, but their gaze is always fixed on the three lower centers where eating, drinking, and sex life are enjoyed. So that's called Muladhara, then Svadhisthana at the sexual organs, and then Manipura in the navel region. That's using the physical body as sort of a graph. They're actually inside. They're not in the spine. These are in your subtle body, these centers. They're not in your physical body. So we can do away with that misfiance right away. So those three lower centers, Sri Ramakrishna said, is where the two eyes tend to gravitate to: eating, drinking, and procreation. They're always there. That's the main purpose of life for most people. And then they'll go after wealth, and they'll go they'll other things in order to get those three things. But he said the eyes are really there, even the physical eyes are there, just between the eyebrows there's a third eye. That's in the forehead. That signifies the brain. Brain signifies the mind. And the mind can be transcended and become non-dual. If thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. That's what Jesus meant by that. He was living at a single-eyed existence called eternal life. You have wives and loaves and bread and fishes and boats and nets, but you don't have eternal life yet. You're living a relative existence. Come to me and I will give you the truth. It will set you free, and then I'll make you fishers of men. Those are famous stories there. So in all traditions you'll have that. And speaking of all traditions, here's my research of where I looked at the single eye in 7 different traditions. If thine eye be single, thou shalt know the truth, said Jesus. Hinduism says, they who perceive with the eye of wisdom, they truly see. Devoting themselves to wisdom, they are neither born at the time of creation, nor are they disturbed at the time of dissolution. But the deluded do not see me as I depart, stay, and enjoy. Only they truly see who possess the inner eye of wisdom, says Sri Krishna. So, Utkramantam stiti vyapi bunjanam vimuda nanu pashanti jnana chakshushaha are the exact Sanskrit words to that in the Gita. So they do not see me as I come and go in and out of bodies, but they see who possess this eye of wisdom. So if you don't have that eye of wisdom open and you want to see the Lord, where are you going to go? To your spiritual jeweler to get a diamond needle that you can penetrate that darkness with. Go to your guru and he'll tell you, arise awake, stop not till the goal is reached. As sharp as a diamond needle is the spiritual path. As sharp as a razor's edge, the Upanishads say, is the spiritual path. So that's the top half of this chart. We're going on with these mentions of eye of wisdom. Kundalini Yoga system says, as Kundalini traverses the 6th center, that's the third eye or lotus, called Agya Chakra, currents of refined prana rise high. Visions, light, and internal sounds are experienced, and the mind gets so absorbed that it loses normal consciousness. So that's why we saw Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who we just read about, was always just like losing consciousness of this external world and going into this inner state. You could be sitting next to him and look away for 5-10 seconds and look back, and he's like gone. So anything that happened in the room, or anything that was said, or anything that he might think, or anything that the Divine Mother Kali caused him to think, would cause him to go into a deep spiritual mood. In the Gospel, that's called the Master went into an abstracted mood. So people were sitting around watching him go into this abstracted spiritual mood all the time. And so many others were not having access to that. The young monks weren't at first. So they had to see Sri Ramakrishna say, oh, I see, there's another level of consciousness that some of these souls can go to. And when they do, it's just sort of like mimics deep sleep. They just lose touch with their senses and with their mind, and they go into a deep state. The eyes might roll up in the head, the tongue cleaves to the roof of the mouth, the hair stands on end. We call that chicken skin in Hawaii. And then, flesh herpulates. They've got like 7 different signs that this Kundalini yoga, Kundalini Shakti has left the lower centers and has reached the heart and is coursing her way up to her Lord Shiva. She wants to unite with him. So those are 3 systems that I found mention of the third eye. And the 4th one is Buddhism. Shakyamuni said, I have the true Dharma eye hidden in my wisdom eye. So all the wisdom is in that center. It's Divine Mother's own center. And so that's why our founder, Lexington, wrote this book we have on the shelves there. Mother of the Buddhas, it's called. Mother of the Buddhas. So, again, we're studying the Vajrasuchika Upanisad. There's a Buddhist scripture that also talks about wisdom, like Diamond Sutra, wisdom needles that penetrate ignorance. So Buddhism and Hinduism, or Buddhism and Vedanta, share so many of the same perspectives. I don't consider them 2 different religions. I consider them one. Then Taoism is a religion people go to. The eyes are windows of the soul. You've heard that before. Now you know where it came from. Lao Tzu in Taoism said it. Between the 2 windows is the main door to divinity. So between these 2 eyes, there's a main door to divinity. Enter there to discover your inner divine nature. Beautiful, huh? Nothing too abstruse about that. Gnosticism says the true gate is also the door to one's divine nature. It's called the front door to heaven. It is located neither left nor right, nor up nor down. So you're not going to be looking up for God, or down for devil, or left or right, as Moses said. Lo, I declare to you, it's right there within you. It's immovable. It's your own nature. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. But you're going to have to slough off that skin of darkness that you've willingly taken on in order to see your true nature again. It's right there in the center, thus it's called the door to divinity. Also, the white sun. Have you ever heard that expression? That comes from Gnosticism, the white sun. Confucianism says 3 persons are walking together. Who's the master of them? They all have 2 eyes, but the divine third eye is the master of all. So I'm sure I could look in other religions and find mentions of the sacred nature of this center called Agya Chakra and Kundalini, or Jnana Chaksha by Sri Krishna. So good. Then let's look at further teachings and make some headway into this Upanishad. Then it's after that first sloka about the Suchika. It says the Smritis, that's the lower scriptures, the scriptures that talk about divine history and so forth. The Smritis affirm, following the Vedas, that the Brahmana is the most important of all 4 castes. But it must be asked, who is a Brahmana? The self, body, class, knowledge, action, or virtue, is that the Brahmana? So I said that I took a little time to consider this Upanishad because I didn't really want to get so deeply into the 4 castes in a Upanishadic class. But then I started reading, the deeper meaning of Upanishad is Brahmana really means a knower of Brahman. So what the Upanishad is saying here is that basically you don't have to be a Brahmana to know Brahman. Thank God, because then we'd be restricted to very few knowers of Brahman, wouldn't we? But for instance, you saw Diamond Sutra of Zen, there's a whole list of some 100 souls that were not that were lower caste people. One of them was blind, one of them was a beggar. Different teachers in Zen who all reached Satori. So they weren't high souls of a higher caste only. They also got that enlightenment at their level, at their station of life. So station of life is one of the things he's saying here. This Upanishad, this rishi says, is it self, is it body, is it class, is it knowledge, is it action, is it virtue? Those 6 things he's going to talk about in the rest of the Upanishad. Is that what defines a Brahmana? No, the Upanishad says, not at all. Those can be very valuable things, but they can also be weights, iron chains that bind you. So in that way then, we can, it'd probably be good to get a little bit of background on caste. When you look at it, it's there are two charts. That's why they look the same here. I'm not trying to increase your double vision, but there are 2 sets of 4s here that you look at when you look at caste and class. Basically, one's called varnashrama, and the other's called dharmashrama. And it's good to make a distinction between those and look at those. What we're really concerned with, for the most part, is this varnashrama. Varna means these castes. So there's the Brahmana listed there. See, so that's what the Upanishad is dealing with. Basically, the Smritis affirm, following the Vedas, that the Brahmana is the most important of all 4 castes. You usually think of a Brahmana as a Brahmin priest. Like Sri Ramakrishna was born in the priest class as a Brahmin priest. But Swami Vivekananda was born as a Kshatriya there. That's the military class. So the warriors, the noble warriors of India. We could look at Swami Vivekananda and say, oh no, he's not an order Brahmin because he was a Kshatriya by birth. It's not going to make much sense when we found out he's probably the most intelligent of all beings that we've followed in this lifetime. And he even came to the West to show us this beautiful teaching. So you can see there the quote from Bhagavad Gita, he from whom is the evolution of all beings, by whom all this is pervaded, worshipping him with his own duty, mankind attains perfection. So you could see that Sri Ramakrishna also is not limited in his view of beings that can gain perfection. If they worship him due to their own class and station, they too will they'll attain to the Brahman state. So this is a quick study. Basically, you could see that quote above Brahmana. That's Sri Ram there in the middle with the bows and arrows pointing to each of those 4 castes of life. The quote is serenity, self-restraint, austerity, purity, forgiveness, uprightness, knowledge, realization, perception of what is beyond life and death. These are qualities of the Brahmanas. Looking at it in an opposite way, there are many Brahmanas in India who fell very far from the goal. Sri Ramakrishna noticed them when he was in India in the mid-1800s when he was alive. He said the Brahmin caste, he walked into a temple one time with his students to see the mother and worship the mother there. And he was there at a strange time of day in the afternoon. So nobody was there, so he walked further into the temple. Then they saw the Brahmin priest sitting on the floor playing cards. And Sri Ramakrishna turned to his student and said, to play cards in the temple of Jagadamba? That should never be done. See? So they've fallen from their great responsibility of serenity, self-restraint, austerity, purity, forgiveness, service, and they're not acting. So we know that's also happened in the Christian religion and in other religions too. So this is why the Brahmana should have these high virtues. But the Upanishad is going to say that virtue and vice, the Brahmana does not define a Brahmana either, because that's, according to another duality that can pin people down to relativity. I'm virtuous, but you've got vice. See? But beyond virtue and vice both is the Divine Mother. Nobody can realize them if they, Ramprasad sings, if they think that virtue and vice are real. You have to transcend them, both, not just vice, but virtue too. So that's, one's a gold chain, the other's an iron chain, Vivekananda said. So these are teachings of a more non-dual nature beyond the Smritis. You say the Smritis affirm, following the Vedas, that the Brahmana is the most important of four castes. Well, what do the Smritis know that the Upanishads don't know? If they're following the Vedas, they should be following the fourth section of the Vedas called the Upanishads, in which these teachings get given out, that all beings have open access to Brahman. Nobody should consider themselves to be inferior just because they're born in a lower class or a lower caste. That burned the neck of Swami Vivekananda when he heard that the Indian teachings were getting interpreted that way. He said, everyone's got free access to the Lord. I might as well put it that way. And it's really only their own inhibitions, their own limitations that they're clinging to, their own attachments and so forth they're clinging to, that keep them from that. But nobody else can keep them from that if they decide to take that path seriously and with sincerity. Like, for instance, the Kshatriyas, there's the next class, the warriors. Heroism, vigor, firmness, resourcefulness, fearlessness during encounters, generosity, lordliness, these are the qualities of the warriors, of the Kshatriyas. And probably look at modern armies, you won't find many of those in the military. Then you have the Vaishyas. Vaishyas basically merchants. Agriculture, cattle rearing, business of trade and selling, earning based on honesty. These are some of the duties of the Vaishya, born of their own nature. So these are three different natures you're looking at, and they have these high qualities that need to be cited, and that would be dharmic. But the Upanishad is making this point that it's not just a Brahmana that can realize, can get possession of this diamond needle and penetrate ignorance, but everyone can do that. They have equal and free access to that. And guess what? Even the Shudras too. Like, remember the untouchables, when we probably heard about them when Gandhi was on the scene. You know, so it was a horrible thing that all of the great souls of India, like Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji and Gandhi and Ramana Maharshi and others, were horrified by the treatment of Shudras and the poverty that they were in, and wanted to raise them up to the best qualities of their caste. What are the best qualities of a Shudra, a worker? Selfless action consisting of service to all castes and classes is the duty of the Shudra, born of their own nature. So each of these have their own nature. And Krishna says about that, better is one's own dharma, though imperfect, than the dharma of another well performed. That one who fulfills the duty ordained by his own nature avoids all transgressions. So you fulfill your nature and your station, and you do it dharmically, and then you too can approach this path of spirituality. One of the downfalls of the Brahmin priest class over the last 1,000 years at least, maybe 2,000, Vivekananda says, is that they kept the teachings from the householders, from the merchants, from the Shudras. Only they could have them. See, they wouldn't give out these liberating teachings. So that's been one of the downfalls of the caste system, according to earlier time when it was given out to everyone. And everyone had that right to whatever level they were at, they could transcend all four levels and get enlightenment. Moksha, mukti, kaivaya, satori, asampragyata. All of these are open to all beings, not just to the brahmanas. So this is why this Upanishad is very unique in that way, and talks about a diamond needle that's there for everyone. Acquire that. It's just wisdom. It's non-dual wisdom that will penetrate through all such overlays, whether they be from history, or whether they be from a religion, or whether they be from a dark age like this, the Kali Yuga. That wisdom is your right. You can acquire it from an authentic teacher, and you can utilize it with a method to penetrate through the darkness. Just think of that diamond needle, you see, and the Vajra, the power it has in it, and apply it, and get yourself free right away. And as far as action goes, one should not abandon the duty to which one is born, even if it is attended with evil, for all undertakings are fraught with imperfection, Arjuna, as fire is enveloped by smoke. So Arjuna, of course, is whom is talking to on the battlefield there. Krishna is speaking to his devotee Arjuna. And he makes that point, is that just like smoke envelops fire, all action is covered, with this imperfection. We were talking about that yesterday at satsang, right? That you must not have expectation for some job that you're doing to work out perfectly all the time. The imperfections will come out in the work as you try them. So the real purpose is that you remain equal however the work turns out. See, Vivekananda sings about that quite a bit in some of his poems to the Divine Mother, which we cited. Yeah, another verse that we could have talked about yesterday at satsang was to friend and foe alike, thy lotus eye is even. There's that lotus eye again. Ever thy animating touch grants fruits to fortunate and unfortunate alike. The shade of death and immortality, both these are your grace, O Mother. O Mother, may thy gracious face never be turned away from me, thy child. This is the great Swami Vivekananda singing to Divine Mother inside of him. So, to both fortunate and unfortunate alike, she's granting fruits. You've seen all the rich people here who are doing horrible acts. They're getting all this good fortune go to them, right? Who can figure that out? And people who don't have any money and means with all this potential, they don't get the opportunity because wealth doesn't flow their way. Well, that wealth, if you worship the Mother, she's worshipped by the god of wealth. That is Lakshmi, whose birthday was 2 days ago, by the way. Shrim Hrim Klim Aim Kamlavasanje Swaha is her mantra. May all this wealth come to us. She worships the goddess. That is, Lakshmi is only a partial manifestation of the goddess. But she worships the supreme goddess, the Divine Mother. And that's a line out of Vivekananda's poem too. All right, quickly, over here, let's look at the Dharma Ashrama. Celibate student, honest merchant, retired forest dweller, and a renounced freedom-seeking soul. These 4 stages of life are well known among those who value dharmic living. So if you don't value dharmic living, if you're adharmic, if you're doing ill-considered actions, if you're selfish, if you don't care for the good of others, if you have no compassion for people, we're not talking to you. Good luck with your life. But if you're interested in living a dharmic life, which is good for all beings, then this was a system that persisted for thousands and thousands of years and kept India pure. See? Even now, India is head and shoulders above all other countries in morality, in virtue. You go there, you'll find that out. In fact, come with me, I'm going in February. And we'll go to Rishikesh and look at the Indian people. And it's not across the board, there's also worldly people and unconscious people in India too, but basically the fiber and the fabric of Dharma that's been there so long that's soaked into the firmament of their being. And they naturally act in accord with the Dharma. Even the business people do that. Like we've had stories of people oh sir, you dropped your wallet, you got thousands of rupees in your walk, somebody comes walking up with you, Hindu finds on the sidewalk, you dropped your wallet, sir. So there's no thought of taking something that doesn't belong to them, because that's called asteya. It's the third of 5 dharmic principles. First, you don't harm anyone, ahimsa. Second, you're always truthful, satyam. Third, you don't covet the goods of other beings. And fourth, you remain pure and moderate in your appetites. And then there's 6 other yamas and niyamas that they live by. So that's the point here, is basically, if you're interested in Dharma, you'll start out as a celibate student, and you'll prove yourself. You'll become married to a dharmic partner if you're a householder, that is, if you're a Vaishya, Shudra, maybe even a Kshatriya. You will become an honest merchant, do your business honestly, and you may then move, after your children are gone into the vanaprasthan stage. See, that's called forest dweller. You know, this is not modern now. It's not accepted nowadays as much, because it's hard to wander. For instance, if you're a sannyas and you're supposed to wander, good luck. You better bring some, wire cutters to cut through all the fences that cut across all the lands in all the countries, and get ready to run from shotguns and hounds if you want to wander the world now. But basically, it can still be done a little bit in India, up the holy river in Varanasi and so forth. But basically, that's what you have to think about in terms of a sequence to your life. I'm just going to be born a householder and die a householder. I'm just going to be born a warrior and die a warrior. I'm just going to be born a worker and die a worker. The Upanishads are saying, find that golden needle, that diamond needle, and penetrate the ignorance and find your higher nature, which is beyond all 8 of these. See? That's why we're looking at them today, because these 2 foursomes have been in India for millennia, for ages really, and they keep coming back as the foundation of life. So if you're a brahmacharya, celibate student, that initial stage of life wherein youth receives pertinent instructions on earthly and spiritual life from parents and teachers, strives to develop character and virtues. All right, so nowadays we're going to have to find parents and teachers who are dharmic to teach us this. All hands, raise all hands who had dharmic parents. I mean, I guess we did. We had some moral parents, some of us. But if you define Dharma and look at what Dharma means, then no, in the West we didn't get Dharma from our parents. It's a very special level of knowing, of knowledge. It's not lower knowledge, like arts and sciences and so forth, what you would make money with if you were a Shudra or a merchant. But this is a higher teaching that's going to bring you up and out of these barriers that could cause you to die in ignorance and not remember your past birth, and have another birth, and then another birth, all without going anywhere. Like spinning your wheels. Hamster on a wheel in a cage, lifetime-wise. So you can read something like that and say, how great, but then we want to look for rebirths with dharmic parents. Krishna mentions that in the Gita. If you don't reach the goal of human existence in one lifetime, then you're going to have to try for dharmic householders, or yogis, or rishis. Those are 3 tiers of different kinds of parents you have to search for, you have to qualify yourself for, in order to be born in the Dharma. That's why, for instance, the Tibetans are being born again in Tibet, because their parents are dharmic. And they have Dalai Lamas and Karmapas and Rinpoches and Tulkus who have been for 1,400 years now qualifying themselves in the Dharma. So you can find teachers up the street. You used to be able to find teachers of the Dharma up the street in your own neighborhood. That's called the Gurukula system in India. That's been deteriorating for about 1,000 years too, according to Swami Vivekananda. So it's very hard to find sincere, authentic teachers, as you may know, for teachings like this when you're young. I was lucky, found Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj when I was 20, early 20s. So that was right across the river in Portland, Oregon, at the Vedanta Society. So these souls do come. They come close to you, and you have to wake up and take advantage of them, the nearness to them. So that's the first stage of life. It'd be nice if you, and you know, we had some semblance of that in America, didn't we, early on? We had the problem of communism, so far everyone was deathly fear of the Russians and all that. So that kind of veiled it. But basically, we were supposed to be celibate in high school, and you know, follow honest modes of honesty and uprightness and so forth. And that began to deteriorate through the 60s and 70s and now. So basically, India always held this code of ethics very strong, that the brahmachari, you should be brahmachari, moderate and celibate in your early life. Store up spiritual power, because that's the very power that's going to take you beyond the three lower centers, to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye, and open it. And so you're not going to get the Diamond Sutra living at the three lower centers. So obviously what Sri Ramakrishna said, you're attached to objects and enjoyment. There's no diamond needle down there at those levels. Across the river, your Guru's living, he's got a diamond needle for you. Go find him. And then come to this level. This level is love of God. Now I love God instead of the world. And now I speak of nothing but God. I hear nothing but God. I see nothing but God. And I am that God in India. Thou art that. Tattvamasi. Aham brahmasmi. That's what I just chanted at the beginning of the class. Because consciousness is non-dual, and thou art that. That's why you have to correct the primal error of double vision and receive the wisdom that opens the third eye. The next stage after youth stage, youthful moderate stage, is called the grihastha. So we know this as the householder, and we know it as contrasted to the monk. Because when Buddhism and Vedanta came here, they were putting things in terms of two classes, that is, two dharmas, instead of four. You're either a householder or you're a monk. And that's pretty much what persists right now, that kind of idea. If you go into spiritual circles of Buddhism and India, Vedanta. So the grihastha then is a householder, or second stage of life, which requires marriage and the inception, rearing, and maintenance of a dharmic family, therefore fulfilling one's duty to society. Is money an evil? No, the use of money is an evil. Earning it in the wrong way, adharmically, is an evil. But Sri Ramakrishna said there are four good ways to use money if you're a householder. Raise a dharmic family, and give to good spiritual causes, because money get taken away by lawyers, doctors, evil children. I'm quoting him. So these are things that are happening all around the world all the time now in this age. So it doesn't need any proof. It's just what's occurring in people's minds. So if you're following a grihastha stage, a young householder, you're going to raise a family in the Dharma, then you can go back to these higher stages and say, I can be twice born. You know that phrase, twice born? They call Tvija, they receive the sacred thread in India. You're born in the Brahman class as a Brahmana. That's called a twice born soul. So that should give you all the impetus you need to become enlightened. Not just keep being a priest all your life, or fall from priestcraft and call yourself a priest in hypocrisy, which is happening in all religions. So there's always a higher leaning to the great scriptures of India that want to get you free. That's those M words, moksha, mukti. That's absolute freedom. And that's the goal of human existence. So brahmacharya, grihastha, after you've raised your children and you've completed all the money making and business and all of that, you pass it on to your children possibly, then it's called vanaprastham. Vanaprasthan life is the third stage, which ensues after family is consummated, consisting of retiring into the forest to pursue studies, devotional exercises, and meditation. And we had in America, we've looked back on some of our history, the Walt Whitmans and so forth, people who went into the forest and retired from the world and started studying the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita. And a lot of people discovered the Upanishads that way when they retired into the forest. And these were Western people. So in India, that's just more widely known, that the Vanaprasthan stage is what happens next to you in life after you've raised your family. You just sit around and be a weight on your family, or just do the same things that you did earlier when they're already grown up and they don't need you anymore. You've got a life too. So how about a Vanaprasthan stage? About packing up and leaving and going to the forest and pursuing your destiny and get yourself free, get enlightened. Especially after you've fulfilled your karma, then bad karma won't be in the way when you try and get enlightened. But if you stick with family, that's very distracting. So it's not a popular notion in the West. Family is everything, they say. But family is everything for a while, India says. But then it's not. Then you have to become asanga, unattached. First sangha, then asanga. Sangha means you have a group. Then asanga means you get dispassion from it because you want to get free. And the old notion that you can try and free others while you're still bound, it's not going to work. See? Oh, I'm going to stay here with my family because they need me. What do they need you for? You're not enlightened yet. Nobody ever needs you really until you're enlightened. Then you can free them. But you can't even free yourself when you're attached to them, because that's not free to be attached. So this is where it's leading to a wandering life. See, this is all well figured, all well documented, and it's millennia and ages old, these systems. Both of them, Dharma, Shrama, Varna, Shrama, millennia old. In this cycle alone, it comes back again in other cycles. So you can see here in sannyas, if you started out a young celibate student and you've gotten married and lived a dharmic life, raised a dharmic family, then you went to the forest, maybe with your wife or your husband, and you studied there the Gita, the Upanishads, and so forth, in a hut that you made, or a little piece of land you bought, and you freed yourself. Then at some point you say, I think I will wander now, and I'm going to find freedom, and that's called sannyas. So now you have whole thousands and thousands and thousands of souls in India who are sannyasins. And some of them have come here to teach us this, like Swami Vivekananda. They said, these are stages of life. You don't need to stay in one place. I mean, what I'm saying here basically are elements of the diamond needle. You know, just say, well, when is he going to get back the diamond needle? I'm talking about the diamond needle with every teaching I give. That is what's going to penetrate your ignorance by looking at systems like this and taking them seriously. And I could say that I'm inserting the needle into your mind right now. Over the last hour, do you feel it? It's funny, Tatapari put a piece of glass to Sri Ramakrishna's third eye and pressed there. He said, concentrate here. And Sri Ramakrishna concentrated there, and the vision of God in form blew apart, and he saw the light. And he was in samadhi for days and days while Tatapari tried to nurture him, to keep him in the body, feed him milk, force feed him milk, and so forth. And so that penetration of darkness is going to have to be given with the power of a Vajra. You see, there are Vajra holders in Tibet. I hold the power of this lineage, or I hold the power of this, or of this. It's all a part of the Dharma. And unfortunately, we in the West don't have systems like this. Pretty much it's rich and poor. I'll throw in the middle class maybe. But, that's in a 200-year-old country. I mean, we're just infants. But they've gone through thousands and thousands of years of these kinds of systems and produced sannyasins. Where's our sannyasin? So these sannyasins are free souls, and they come back to us, teach us. Buddha did that. He was son of a king. He left the palace. He was rich. He gave up everything, left the palace, went to the forest, became a renunciate, a recluse, finally found nirvana, and then went back to the palace to help save his mother-in-law and his son. A lot of people knew that Buddha had a son, and his father, King Shakya. So he's enacting this very same system. I will leave family now to get free, find the truth, I'll come back and give it to them so they can be free too. That's what Holy Mother has told us. Now that you've found Sri Ramakrishna, you're free. But now, on your way to Sri Ramakrishna, won't you turn and help others, she said. That's why you want to get close to these great souls for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, in my case, 60, 70 years, 80 or 90 years in the case of Swami Shishanandaji. And keep hearing the Dharma. It's like go to your guru every day and say, can you stick that diamond needle in a little more? See? A little deeper this time, please. And be there and be conscious of the effects. I know we're running out of time in this short class, but basically we've gotten through those first several slokas. They're setting forth for us the Vajrasuchika, a diamond needle, which belies ignorance and which becomes an ornament for the illumined soul. But only if they've opened this. Then we went to look at what the wisdom eye is and why everyone's talking about it so much, and how to do it. Transcend our other five senses, three sets of five senses, you might say. There's also 5 active senses, by the way: procreation, locomotion, excretion. So there's another 5. They're called active senses. So we want to graduate ourselves, qualify ourselves for a rarefied level of Divine Mother energy, Shakti, Devatma Shakti, the divine energy. Please rise in me, O Mother. Rise to higher centers. And may I be aware of the rising and benefit by all the effects of your presence inside of my body-mind mechanism. Be aware of that happening to me, not just hear something and walk away, or feel something and not come back. So then, after that first sloka, which is most important, then they surprise us. Oh, so who is the Brahmana? Who is it that really knows Brahman? Not just Brahmana of a caste system, but who is it that really knows Brahman, or is qualified to know Brahman? I want to know that, please. And that's where we read that. We're looking at, is it the self? That is the ego, not the Atman. Then is it the body? Is it the class, which we looked at already? Is it his particular knowledge? Like the Brahmin priest has knowledge about rituals, right? And mantras and slokas, can recite them. Is it that qualifies you to be a knower of Brahman? And is it virtue? And the Upanishad is proceeding to tell us, no, none of that is necessary to be a knower of Brahman. That does not describe a knower of Brahman. A knower of Brahman actually is free from many of those things, like virtue and vice, like caste and class. And that becomes obvious when you study a Ramana Maharshi or a Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And the next thing they're going to take us on, which will happen next Sunday, is, the next one is the body. We looked at class and caste. So it's the body, is because he's twice born, because he has a higher body than the rest of us. Does that qualify him to be an knower of Brahman? I'll give you this much for next time, basically. The soul is not a Brahmana, because the soul is the same in all bodies, past and future. The same person takes many bodies according to karma. So the body is not a Brahmana. The body is the same for the Chandala, that's here, basically, or lower than here even, the outcast, and it's the same as the higher caste. That would be the Brahmana. Because it's made of the 5 elements in both cases, and both seem to experience birth, growth, decay, old age, disease, and death, right? The 6 billows and the 6 transformations. Both Buddha and Vedanta teach that. Birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. That's a teaching we had last weekend at the seminar. So, many of you weren't at the seminar, so maybe it's a refresher, but I'm not bringing it up to repeat it from last week. I'm bringing it up in the context of that all of these pertain to everyone. Even the avatar suffers. He doesn't get free of suffering in the body. He gets free of suffering beyond the body. Well, we can't do that yet because we can't go into samadhi. We can get free of body in deep sleep for a few hours, but we don't realize that we've gotten free of sleep, free of suffering in deep sleep. See, if we realized we were free of suffering in deep sleep, we'd say, I think I want to keep this. And at that point, you'd have a grip on a diamond needle. You'd have your first real grip on that diamond needle that will penetrate through everything and make you a knower of Brahman. So I'm just getting started, but we have to end. So, next Sunday we'll pick this up at about the level of, we know so far that it's not class and caste that defines a knower of Brahman. It's not the body that defines or restricts a knower of Brahman, and it's not the soul. That doesn't mean the Atman soul, it means the ego soul that transmigrates. It's not that defines a knower of Brahman. In case of the body, the 5 elements are there in the ant and in the avatar. So they all suffer, they all die, they all get disease, and they all pass, and they all come back. So what is that special degree or quality of highest wisdom that will open up when on your chart there, you can keep them, you want to pass them back to me, I'll distribute them next week unless you can hold on to them and you want to study them. But basically, when that needle's applied with the force of the Vajra, because you can't just scratch your forehead with it and expect to get enlightened, you have to have the wherewithal and the radical nature to stick that in deep, to penetrate your comfort zones and reveal your karmas and destroy them outright, neutralize them, and emerge free as you always are and always were. Retain your freedom again. So here we'll end with the chant. Om Kripam Kuru Mahadevi Suteshu pranateshu cha charanashraya danena kripamai namostute lajapata vrite nicham sharada gyanadaite papebhyo na shararaksha kripanmai namostute Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadurum Pado Padme Toye Shvita Pranamami Muhur Muhur Om Shanti Shanti Shanti